I'm going to go over some of the major parts in the first dialogue that we're going to be reading, which is the Euthyphro, written by Plato, and it's the translation by Grube. So you want to make sure you're using that translation in order to follow along properly, because different translations, uh, obviously they rephrase and they use different words. So on page 5 of the text we're using, and sometimes I will refer to the letters in the margins. Okay, there's numbers and letters in the margins. Okay, so you'll see something like A, B, all right, and it'll have like a 4 up here. Those are the Stephanus numbers. And those just, they track, because the book is a translation from Greek, so they track where the, according to the Greek text. So sometimes I will refer to those numbers in the and letters in the margin, but most of the time I'll try to refer to the page number. So on page 5, page 4 and 5, Euthyphro and Socrates meet up. Socrates is the main character. Okay. Euthyphro is one of the priests of the Greek gods. Of course, this is happening in ancient Greece. And Euthyphro and Socrates meet in front of the courthouse. Socrates is there because he has a date at the courthouse, because he's going to be charged with murder and corrupting the youth. But Euthyphro is there because Euthyphro is charging his father for murder. And Socrates is he's a little put back by this, because he's wondering, whoa, what are you charging your father for murder for? That's a pretty serious thing to do, especially against your father. And so Socrates on page 4, in section B, the number in the margin, B, I mean the letter in the margin, B, Socrates says this after Euthyphro tells him. He says, "Good heavens, certainly, Euthyphro, most men would not know how they could do this and be right. It is not the part of anyone to do this, but of one who is far advanced in wisdom." So Socrates is saying, boy, you must be really know what you're doing here. You must be really wise to prosecute your father, because most people would think that's not pious, or it's wrong. And so when Socrates does that, Euthyphro tells him all the facts of the case. Okay, which is what Socrates really wants him to do. Socrates really wants Euthyphro to give him the reasons why he is prosecuting his father. That's why he approaches him that way. Okay. So if you have a disagreement with somebody, or somebody says something that you don't initially agree with, okay, a good way to make them not tell you the reasons for what they believe is to like insult them or something. Okay, so if somebody you hear something from somebody, and initially you're like, whoa, that sounds kind of crazy, and then you say to that person, boy, man, that really sounds crazy. Why do you believe such stupid things? Why would you even think that way? What's that person going to do? Is that person now going to tell you the reasons why they believe what they believe? Of course not. They're not going to tell you that. They're going to insult you back. Right? Or they're just going to ignore you and run away or something. But they're not going to tell you the reasons of why they believe what they believe. Okay, so that's not how you argue. How you argue is how Socrates is doing it. Socrates, he hears something disagreeable. Euthyphro is prosecuting his father. And so Socrates says, wow, I wouldn't imagine doing such a thing. Maybe you know something I don't know. Maybe you could tell me. Now, if you say that to somebody, what are they most likely to do? They're most likely to spill the beans. They're most likely now to tell you why they believe what they believe. And you don't know what they believe because they haven't told you yet. And so that's why you're ignorant in these matters, which is one of the characteristics of the Socratic method. which is what we'll be going through with this dialogue. We're going to be going through 5 characteristics of the Socratic method. One of the characteristics is known as Socratic ignorance. Now, when Socrates says, well, it's not a part of anyone to do this, but of one who's far advanced in wisdom. What is Socrates showing there? He's showing that he doesn't know. That Euthyphro knows more than him. So Socrates, and he's going to do it even more than that, he's showing his ignorance already. Because he is ignorant, because he doesn't know why Euthyphro is doing what he's doing. If you haven't argued with somebody yet, then you are always ignorant to their position because they haven't told you yet. Okay, so you have to get them to speak. So one of the worst things you can do is shout somebody down or insult somebody before they had a chance to even give the argument. Listen, the Socratic method, what we're going to be going through in this dialogue of the Euthyphro, is a way towards truth. The whole goal is finding the truth about the matter. Okay, so if somebody's concern is not the truth, then this isn't for them. This is for truth seekers, people with an open mind and truly free thinkers. Is the master of the open-minded and the scientific thinker is Socrates. So Euthyphro spills the beans and he tells all about why he's there on top of page 5, which is the largest paragraph of the whole dialogue probably, which shows he doesn't feel attacked, right? He's telling Socrates everything, and what he's telling Socrates is that his father had some servants. One of the servants got drunk and he killed another servant. Okay, and so Euthyphro's father throws that servant in a ditch and he leaves him there while he goes and he sends for help from the city, okay, because they're out in the country. And he couldn't get in a car or something and go and be back in an hour. This is the old days, and so it takes a long time. And so while they're going to go get help, this guy's in a ditch, and the guy in a ditch, the elements, it rains on him, all this stuff, and the guy dies. And so now Euthyphro is prosecuting his father for murder. Okay. So what should you take out of that? Well, it's not entirely clear that Euthyphro's father is a murderer, right? There's a lot of things to work out here, right? First of all, the guy, he's holding the guy who is a murderer himself. We know that, right? So it's not entirely clear. The point is, it's not entirely clear that Euthyphro's father is guilty. Okay, so why is Euthyphro prosecuting him? So Euthyphro feels this obligation to do this. So on page 5, Socrates says, right in the middle, "By Zeus, Euthyphro, you think that your knowledge of the divine and of piety and impiety is so accurate that when those things happened as you say, you have no fear of having acted impiously and bringing your father to trial?" And then Euthyphro responds, "I should be of no use, Socrates, and Euthyphro would not be superior to the majority of men if I did not have accurate knowledge of all these things." So what does Euthyphro sound like here? Does Euthyphro sound like humble? Does it sound that Euthyphro is ready to learn things? "I should be of no use, Socrates, and Euthyphro would not be superior to the majority of men." All right. What if you asked me a question and I said, what kind of question is that? Philip wouldn't be the master of philosophy if I didn't know those things. Does it sound like I'm open-minded, like I have some humility in these matters? Because wise people have humility, because there's a lot of things that we don't know, and the humble person is open to being taught. Does it sound like Euthyphro's like that? Of course not. He's not humble at all here. All right, he's using his name in the third person. Euthyphro knows these things, right? He's not humble at all. He thinks he knows everything. And so Socrates says It is indeed most important, my admirable Euthyphro, that I should become your pupil. And as regards this indictment, challenge Meletus. Meletus is the character that is indicting Socrates for corrupting the youth and atheism. And so Socrates is telling Euthyphro, hey, you could teach me, because they're saying I'm being impious. Impious just means impious, okay? Not pious, not holy, not good, okay? So Socrates tells Euthyphro, you can teach me. They're accusing me of being atheist, being impious, not holy to the Greek gods. And I could use this when I go to court. In fact, when I go to court, I could tell them Euthyphro was my teacher. And I can get off the hook here. All right, so Socrates again is showing that ignorance, the Socratic ignorance. And we have another element of the Socratic method that's starting to be demonstrated here, which is irony. Irony. Irony is a contrast between appearance and reality. So already we have irony, but there's irony throughout all the dialogues. What's the irony here? I'm going to tell it to you, but you really can't see it until the ball starts rolling. But the irony here is that Socrates is assuming the role of the student, the pupil, and Euthyphro is assuming the role of the teacher. He's the wise one, Socrates the ignorant one. That's the appearance. But as we keep going in these dialogues, you're going to find out that it is not Socrates who is the student. It is Euthyphro who's the student, and he's a bad student. And Socrates is the teacher. And it is not Euthyphro who is the wise one. Euthyphro is the ignorant one, and it is Socrates who is the wise one. So we have irony already starting to be displayed here. Contrast between appearance and reality. And so as we move on to the next page, page 6, we see Socrates is going to question Euthyphro. And if we look on section D, Socrates says to Euthyphro, so tell me now, by Zeus, what you just now maintained you clearly knew. What kind of thing do you say that godliness and ungodliness are? In other words, piety and impiety, okay? Both as regards murder and other things. Or is the pious not the same and alike in every action? So what Socrates is looking for here is the essential definition. He's not saying that, but he is looking for the essential definition of piety. Okay? That's why he says, what kind of thing do you say that godliness and ungodliness are, both as regards murder and other things? In other words, what's piety? So you tell me the definition of piety, and I'll look at this case of murder over here and see if this was a pious act, or if this act over here was pious, or if this act over here was pious. And so he says, or is the pious not the same and alike in every action? In other words, Socrates is telling Euthyphro, tell me what piety is, and so I can use what you tell me and determine if all these acts I see are pious or impious, or is the pious not the same and alike in every action? And so Euthyphro says, most certainly, Socrates, of course it's the same and alike in every action. I'm going to tell you what you want. That part is very important. Is the pious, is it the same and alike in every action? In other words, if Euthyphro gives the definition of piety, if it's a good definition, we should be able to apply it to any instance of piety that we see. In other words, his definition should be able to cover all acts of piety. It shouldn't leave out acts of piety. In other words, if you give me a definition of a table, that definition should cover all tables. It shouldn't leave out the table that's in my dining room. If you give a definition of a lion it should cover all lions. It shouldn't leave out that lion over there. Right? That's what Socrates is asking for here. And so Euthyphro is going to begin to give him this. Here's his first definition on the bottom of page 6. I say that the pious is to do with what I'm doing now, to prosecute the wrongdoer. He goes on. I'm going to skip a little bit. And observe, Socrates, that I can cite powerful evidence that the law is so. And then he goes on. I'm going to skip more. These people themselves believe that Zeus is the best and the most just of the gods, yet they agree that he bound his father because he unjustly swallowed his sons, and that he in turn castrated his father for similar reasons. So what Euthyphro is saying is like, you want to know what piety is? It's what I'm doing right now. I'm prosecuting my father. If you don't understand, here's another instance of piety. Remember what Zeus did to his father? Zeus is the best and most just of the gods, yet they agreed that he bound his father because he unjustly swallowed his sons. Look at what Zeus did to his father, Cronus. These are Greek gods, right? Now remember what Cronus did to his father? There's another example of piety. So these are authorities for the ancient Greeks, by the way, these stories of the Greek gods. Okay, because that was their religion, the Greek gods. And so Euthyphro has just given examples, definitions by example. Okay? The problem with the definition by example, it is not the definition that Socrates is looking for. A definition by example does not cover all the areas of the thing that you're defining. What is he defining? He's supposed to be defining piety. And he gave examples. This is similar to me, you asking for a definition of a marker and me telling you it's right here. This is a marker. Or asking for a definition of a human being and I say it's me. I'm a human. What if you went into a biology class and there's definitions and you're studying animals, zoology, you're studying different animals, plants or whatever, and for everything that you're studying, plant or a zebra or whatever, they just have a picture of it. All right, here's the zebra, that's what it looks like. Would that be satisfying? No, it's not satisfying. You have not told the essence of the thing. Right? Not every zebra looks the same. They're in different areas. Right? So this right here is a marker, but it's just one marker. Tell me the essence of the thing. So if you tell me the essential definition of a marker, I could take that essential definition and I can go and see what else is a marker. Okay? But you just showing it to me is not giving me the essence. This is what Euthyphro is doing with piety. He is given an example of piety. He says, it's what I'm doing right now, Socrates. Oh, that's not good. Remember what Zeus did to his father? How about that? These are examples. How Socrates is supposed to take those examples and apply them to whatever cases he sees. He can't. Because the principles have not been extracted. And so Socrates says on page 7 at the top, indeed, Euthyphro, that is the reason why I am a defendant in the case, because I find it hard to accept things like that being said about the gods. Okay, this is a side note. Socrates says, whoa, this is why I'm here, Euthyphro. I don't really believe these stories about the Greek gods. Now, this is the stuff that's going to get Socrates in trouble later on right here. He doesn't believe these stories of the Greek gods. But concerning the definition, on top of page 8, Socrates says, bear in mind then that I did not bid you tell me one or two of the many pious actions, but that form itself that makes all pious actions pious. For you agreed that all impious actions are impious and all pious actions pious through one form. Or don't you remember? So when Socrates says form, He means he's talking about and indicating the essential definition. What is the form of piety by which I could take that form and I can apply it to other things that I see are pious by the same form? Okay? Socrates is looking for the essential definition. And that is another part of the Socratic method, is the search for an essential definition. So, now moving on, Socrates is going to, he tells Euthyphro, this is not good enough. Okay, you just gave me examples. The examples aren't telling me the essence or the form of the thing. Okay, and so Euthyphro's second definition you can see on section 7. It's on page 8, but on the side, on the margin, it's section 7, where Euthyphro says, well then, what is dear to the gods is pious, and what is not is impious. So this is the second definition given by Euthyphro. The first definition was a definition by example. And the second definition is what is dear to the gods is pious, what is not is impious. And then Socrates is going to go into, I mean, if you know anything about the Greek gods, what do the Greek gods do? Right? The Greek gods are always fighting. And they're always fighting about frivolous things. Like one Greek god stole the mortal girlfriend or boyfriend of some other god or something like this, and then they get in a fight, right? They fight about normal things that human beings fight about. Okay, so Euthyphro's second definition says what is dear to the gods is pious and what is not is impious. So do the Greek gods agree about all these things? About what is pious or impious? Of course not, right? And so Socrates merely points this out. And so if you look on page 9 and section 8, he says, but you say that the same things are considered just by some gods and unjust by others. In other words, if Zeus says some act was good, so Zeus, the Greek god Zeus, says this act right here is good. Okay. Then Hera, another Greek god, comes along and says this act is not good. According to Euthyphro's definition, they're both correct, right? Because what is dear to the gods is pious, and what is not is impious. So according to Euthyphro's definition, this act that somebody did, when Zeus says it's good, that's pious. And when Hera says it's not good, the same act, right? Therefore, it would be impious, right? So the same act would be good and not good at the same time. Okay, what we call that is a contradiction. Something cannot be and not be in the same respect and in the same time. Okay. If I have this marker right here and I say, this is a marker, and then I say, the next second, I say, this is not a marker, right? That is a contradiction. One of those statements has to be true, and the other one has to be false. This is what Socrates points out to Euthyphro. He has reduced Euthyphro's argument to a contradiction. And that's what we see on section 8 when he says, but you say that the same things are considered just by some gods and unjust by others. And as they dispute about these things, they are at odds and at war with each other. Is that not so? And then he goes on further. And the same things would be both pious and impious according to this argument. So what Socrates has done here is he's reduced Euthyphro's argument to an absurdity, which is another characteristic of the Socratic method, known as reductio ad absurdum, which is just Latin for reduction to absurdity, which is what Socrates just did. He reduced Euthyphro's argument to an absurdity. What's the absurdity? The contradiction, because contradictions are always absurd. And we will be going into contradictions further in this course so that you can understand them better. So moving on, I'm going to skip a lot. And as you can probably guess, Euthyphro is having a hard time with Socrates at this point, because Euthyphro is thought to be wise by many people because he's a priest of one of the Greek gods. Okay, and what Socrates is showing is that Euthyphro is not as wise as he thinks he is. Okay, so when Socrates is just questioning him, trying to, and Socrates is on a mission to learn, right? He wants the truth of the matter. He wants to learn things, but through his questioning, okay, he when an answer is given to him, he reduces the answers to absurdity, like a trial by fire, in order to see if what somebody's saying is true, and for somebody who doesn't have the humility to take it, they get angry, like Euthyphro. Euthyphro is not going to be happy with Socrates at the end of this dialogue. And he goes away not just angry at Socrates, but frustrated in general. Okay, and Euthyphro isn't the only one that Socrates is going to do this to. But let me give you the last element of the Socratic method, which is dialectic. Dialectic is this teacher-student dialogue, this back and forth teacher-student dialogue that is critical and that questions. And it's really for those who have open minds and have humility. That's when it's most fruitful. Okay, so that's when true dialectic takes place. But it's logical. There's rules. Okay, when Socrates is in dialectic with Euthyphro, but Euthyphro isn't the best partner. Okay, because there's really one way. Or Euthyphro is giving his answers, but it's hard for him to take the criticism that Socrates is giving, even though Socrates is just critiquing what he's telling him. So dialectic takes place when there's two willing participants. And it's just this dialogue, this conversation between teacher and student, whereby both of them are learning in this process, and they're critiquing each other's arguments, putting each other's statements through reductio ad absurdum in order to find the truth of the matter. Okay, so those are the 5 elements of the Socratic method that we see in this dialogue of the Euthyphro. And like I said, the dialogue ends where Euthyphro kind of walks off, kind of frustrated and irritated at Socrates.